Given the importance of getting LDL and ApoB levels down to physiologically low levels in order to regress carotid and coronary plaque, using medications has been very much part of my strategy, which is why it is necessary to call out major influencers who are putting out misinformation when it comes to certain cholesterol-lowering medications. Misinformation that I consider unethical. Stay tuned. So today I'm going to talk about the influencer Nick Norwitz. For those unfamiliar with him, Nick Norwitz is a Harvard-trained medical doctor, Oxford PhD, with a growing and substantial social media following. And he's been putting out information regarding statins that is incomplete, that is lacking in nuance, and that has the potential to mislead and I believe could harm people. Like I said in my intro, lowering ApoB, lowering LDL to physiologically low levels has been integral to how I've been able to regress plaque in my arteries and reduce my risk of a heart attack and stroke. And to be clear, I'm not pro-statin, I'm not anti-statin, I'm pro making informed, intelligent decisions. I'm anti-ideologues and those that seek to perpetuate storytelling in order to generate a following. Nick Norwitz falls into the latter category in my view. He's been saying things about statins that are at best incomplete and misleading information. He's routinely and regularly used the expression statins, plural, worsen insulin resistance and contribute to type 2 diabetes risk. Let's hear Dr. Norwitz in his own words.
Usually, scientific research excites me. It makes me happy. But the paper I just read, it also annoyed me a lot. It explored how statins, the most profitable drugs in history, with annual sales exceeding 20 billion globally, contribute to insulin resistance, increase type 2 diabetes risk, and significantly lower GLP-1 levels in humans.
There you have it in his own words. He said statins contribute to insulin resistance and increase type 2 diabetes. He stated it as if it's a fact. A few seconds later, he doubles down and says essentially the same thing again. Play the tape.
Now, it's relatively well known that statins cause insulin resistance and can increase the risk of diabetes.
There you have it. He said it is relatively well known that statins cause insulin resistance and can increase the risk of diabetes. He states it as if it's a well-known fact. It is not a well-known fact. It is not true. That is what I call a lie by omission, and I'll explain why. First of all, the English language. There is no such medication called statins, plural. None of us go to the doctor and get told, today I'm prescribing you statins. Because it would beg the response, well, how many of them am I going to get, right? We have different kinds of statins. We have atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, pravastatin, simvastatin, pitavastatin, and a couple of others. There's different statins, okay? And what Norwitz is doing when he makes the broad brush statement that statins as a class do something is totally lacking in nuance. It is withholding important information because I'm going to show you now scientific proof that one of those statins, pitavastatin, does no such thing. It does not worsen insulin resistance, and yet his statements, which I consider a lie by omission, infer that it does. So let's actually take a look at the science as it pertains to pitavastatin. All right, so here we have a 2018 study titled Effects of Pitavastatin on Insulin Sensitivity and Liver Fat, a randomized clinical trial. Objective: to study the effects of pitavastatin on hepatic fat and insulin sensitivity. Design: 6-month, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial which, by the way, is the highest standard of evidence. Participants, overweight, insulin-resistant men aged 40 to 65 who had not received statin therapy for more than a year. Interventions, pitavastatin, 4 milligrams, or placebo. Results from this randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. I'm quoting here. There was also no effect of pitavastatin on fasting glucose, HbA1c, and 2-hour glucose after a 75-gram glucose challenge. There was also no change in liver fat. Conclusion: compared with placebo, pitavastatin did not affect hepatic or whole body insulin sensitivity. It also did not reduce liver fat. So here's the issue, right, as I see it. When a leading public figure, which is what Nick Norwitz is, puts out that kind of misinformation, that kind of broad brush sweeping generalization, there is a risk that people could be harmed by that. It's just the nature of the world we live in today. People can follow these social media influencers and perhaps make a decision not to see a medical practitioner and not to ask for or inquire about any statin because of information that they heard online from someone deemed respectable with a Harvard MD behind their name. And like I said, I'm not pro or anti-statin. I've personally taken 3. I took atorvastatin to start with, didn't like it, got muscle aches, which is one of the side effects Norwitz talks about. Took rosuvastatin, got no symptoms, but I checked my creatine kinase blood levels, and sure enough, it was elevated. So that doesn't mean necessarily that therefore all statins do certain things. I'm currently experimenting taking pitavastatin, the one that I just profiled in the study, because it has some interesting potential regarding reverse cholesterol transport. And we're going to get into all of this in future videos. My point is this: I know enough, because I'm educated enough, not to pay attention to the likes of Norwitz, who makes these broad brush statements. But when people do, there is great risk that they could be harmed. Let me give you an example. As you know from my channel, if you're following me, I'm a huge proponent of track your plaque. Get CIMTs done, carotid intermediate thickness. Check the plaque in your arteries. If you do that and you find out that you've got soft, dangerous, non-calcified plaque, one of the things that statins do is that they can help stabilize and calcify that dangerous soft plaque. So if a person has soft, dangerous plaque, it would be terrible if they didn't even go see their doctor about it because they were worried, oh, it's going to increase insulin resistance, when A, pitavastatin does not, and B, there might be a greater, higher priority, which is to stabilize the plaque and potentially save their life. So when this kind of misinformation is put out there, information that seeks to demonize an entire category of medications, I just think it's outrageously unethical. I think Norwitz, who likes to claim on his channel that he's all about nuance, is anything but. Anything but. I think he needs to apologize to his audience and tell people, I'm going to do better moving forward. If he was to say, look, some statins could worsen insulin resistance at a certain dose and in some people, but here's the markers to check if it actually does in you, and there might be other considerations for why to take it, that's one thing. But when he just comes out and states it almost as a fact, statins worsen insulin resistance and can increase type 2 diabetes, when we know for a fact that that's a lie as it pertains to pitavastatin, that is a huge problem. This is a public figure educator with Harvard MD behind his name, okay? Even worse than him doing this is the hypocrisy he gets into when he criticizes other people for doing it. In the video that I show clips from him, he's criticizing Peter Attia for withholding information about a GLP-1 study, right? And he goes on this monologue to say how that destroys trust. So let's hear Nick Norwitz, hypocrisy, talking about Peter Attia. Then I'll come back with a final comment.
Peter, in what appears to be a response letter to me, a case I'll make in a moment, attempted to discredit this study. Yet, he completely and conspicuously omitted its central graphic, this one. He did manage to cherry pick other panels from the exact same figure to include in his rebuttal, but the only graph of true and obvious relevance, he ignored it completely. And when the most important result disappears, that's not nuance and accuracy, it's curation. And if you're still not getting it, this is not a trivial omission. When patients discover that information was withheld, whether intentionally or through ignorance, and in Peter's case, I think it probably was intentional, trust erodes. The irony is that transparency, even when the data are imperfect or ugly, builds trust. Saying, here's what we know, here's what we don't, and here are the open questions is not weakness. It's one of the most powerful tools medicine has. Medicine doesn't fail when it's honest and imperfect. It fails when it's paternalistic.
So there you have it. Hypocrisy at its finest. He's criticizing it here for withholding a graph, a chart pertaining to a study, not explaining the whole picture to people, when he does that himself routinely every time he says the word statins do something. And ironically, even the GLP-1 study that he cites, it doesn't pertain to all statins. That study pertained to atorvastatin. So he's extrapolating again there when he says statins worsen, drop GLP-1. There's evidence that happens in atorvastatin, but he doesn't make that distinction, does he? This is an ideologue trying to sell an anti-statin agenda. And and he says things like on other channels, I would take a PCSK9 inhibitor myself instead of a statin. Fine and dandy for him. Maybe he's rich. Maybe he's got lots of money, okay? Because those drugs, if they're not covered by insurance, can be very expensive. Statins are generic, very, very cheap. So this is not doing a public service. This is hypocrisy. This is him making broad brush statements when he knows better. This is him engaged in storytelling. And the fact of the matter is, we're going to get into different statins. We're going to get into the mechanisms of action. We're going to get into the details of regressing, non-calcified soft plaque in the arteries, and maybe one day even calcified plaque. We'll see about that. But in the meantime, this needs to be pointed out. On this channel, you're going to get nothing but the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, okay? Everything's going to be explained. Everything's going to be transparent. But the fact of the matter is, lowering ApoB, lowering LDL to physiologically low levels, which statins can help do, minimize the risk of a heart attack and a stroke. So if you like the contents of my video, please do subscribe. Please share and comment and call Nick Norwitz out for the hypocrisy that he's engaged in. I'll see you next time.